So we are live. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to CEO Live Podcast. And if you're a member of the Morning Hustlers, you get to be here live in our Facebook group. Now, as a listener of the podcast, I know you care deeply about living the best possible life that you possibly can. However, it can be really challenging to have the discipline to get yourself to do the things you really want to do. And a big mistake that people make is the mistake of thinking that they have more time than they actually do. People tend to put things off thinking as if like they're going to live forever. And because of that, they often fall short of their goals and dreams. Well, today I have a very special guest for you. His name is Jordan D. Marcia. And Jordan had a heart transplant at the age of 3.5. Now, I don't want to give away too much of his story and his life philosophies in the introduction, but let's say he came to terms with his mortality at a very young age. Now, it's Jordan's goal to travel, around the world. I believe it's 182 countries.
It's 190, 92, 196 now, because they keep saying that there's new countries that they're allowing to be countries.
Interesting.
It's crazy.
So, wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
So far, Jordan has been able to travel to 13 of those countries so far, and he plans on traveling to all of them. Now, he has traveled to those countries while being a life and accountability coach for entrepreneurs. Now, by the end of this interview, you're going to have a new perspective on life. You're going to feel that it's 100% your duty to do whatever it takes to get up and take action. And also, one thing that's really awesome and generous that Jordan has put together is you're going to get a free course on mindset. And we're going to direct you over how to get that free course at the end of the interview. So without further ado, Jordan, man, I really appreciate you taking time to be here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that the opportunity to be here as well and to kind of just tell my story. That's what I live for.
Awesome. So walk us through, man. You had a heart transplant at the age of 3.5.
Yeah.
What was that like growing up?
So it had its ups and downs. I mean, one of the benefits of being able to face your mortality at a very young age is you understand that time is finite. So if you want to do something, there's no like, a lot of people have this conversation in their mind where they let fear dictate their entire lives. And I say I was lucky because when you are faced with something like that at a very young age and you live through it, fear's not like, you realize that fear's not real. It's just an idea. It's a story that you tell yourself. So it's actually given me the ability to be able to just come up against some of like what I call the dragons in my life and cut it off at the tail, which is my analogy for if you cut a dragon off at the tail, lose its balance, you can kill the dragon. So it kind of gave me the ability to just kind of go after life head on without all of the negative stories and fear of failure, in lack of a better term.
Nice, man. So walk us through like your childhood. What was it like? Like, how were you much different than the kids like that you
Uh,
were, in communication with?
yeah, for sure. So because of what I was brought into at a very young age and my understanding of life and how things worked, it's extremely difficult for me to be able to really communicate with and have like friendships as a kid, because the way I thought and how I processed information and sort of how I like lived my life even as a child was entirely different than every other kid. Like every other kid's in there and they're going crazy and they're having fun times and they're sort of doing whatever. And I was always thinking like, what's your story? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Like, what's your ideas? And a lot of them had nothing to do with it, like nothing, because you're a kid and all you want to do is play and do dumb things. So for me, it was really, really hard to create sustainable friendships and sustainable um, relationships with people because I had that barrier where I couldn't really um, connect. So growing up, it was quite difficult, and this continued from child, and I still had friends, but I always felt like I couldn't connect properly. This
Mm.
went through childhood. This went into my teenage life, and into like the early adult years of my early 20s, before I started to really find people who understood, who I could communicate with. And yeah, it was a big challenge, like a big challenge growing up.
Yeah, most definitely, man. So, like, what were the thoughts that you were having, like, at such an early age in your life? Were you thinking about how you can die any day, or
Yeah.
like, what did you want to do with your life? Is that the kind of stuff that you were thinking about?
Yeah, pretty much like daily. it was um it was a constant conversation. Like I've got this voice in the back of my mind that pretty much kicks up every single morning. And it's simply just um what are you doing right now? Is what you're doing right now gonna help you become the person that you want to be in the next 5 or 10 years? Um, do you have the next 5 or 10 years to complete what you want to do? And if you don't, maybe you should correct your patterns and your habits so that you could try to achieve those faster. So one of the
Mhm.
benefits was because of this mentality. If I look at where I am right now and where I want to be in 5 to 10 years and what do I want to accomplish, let's say as a kid, what I wanted to accomplish was honestly straight up as a kid, I wanted to graduate high school. Like my goal was literally just to graduate high school so that I could like have a bunch of photos for my brother, my sister, and my dad to be able to look back on if I passed away. That was sort of my idea. I ended up living longer than that, thankfully, but that was literally my goal is just to create a life where my own family could look back at it. And then as I got older and I lived past a certain point, like typical transplant, you have 10 years on heart before things start to go south. And then when I got to like 13, 14 and my health was great, this realization hit where it was like, hey, you're probably going to live longer. So I had to literally start to create new things for myself so that I could push myself to go do other things and bigger things. And I started creating this like different ideas of I wanted to help people. I wanted to like try to coach them. I wanted to try to like figure out their stories and where they're at and how to help them. And I remember being in like grade 6 and 7 and listening to people's like literally kids' problems. I actually did this younger too in the hospital with like other children who had surgeries, listening to their problems and where they're at, what they're struggling with, and being like, okay, hey, yeah, no problem. Like if you do this and if you do that, or if you think of this way, or if you change this way that you're perceiving this information, it's going to give you better tools in order to combat it. And when I was a kid, I literally got dragged around by some of the doctors and even other parents into children's rooms to help coach them on pre-surgery and post-surgery. And I was like 5. And then after that, I got the opportunity to kind of go do talks at Children's Hospital and stuff as well, where I was able to talk about your story, who you are, what you're doing, and sort of your goals and what you're trying to achieve long term. And it really just gave me the ability to help shape people's lives and kind of move them into the direction that they really wanted to go and stop thinking of themselves as like a victim. Because one of the problems with having transplants is a lot of people have this finite idea of like I've only got 10 years and then they feel sorry for themselves. So my goal was literally to just like flip the script and try to show people like you got 10 years. What do you want to do with that? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to sit down and cry? Or are you going to get up and you're going to go try to do all the things you want to do? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Did
dude,
I
that
answer
is
your question or did I just kind of go on a rant?
no, no, dude, that was such a powerful, thing right there that you
Uh,
just went down. Like, that's such a powerful thing to adopt as a kid. Cause I can imagine most kids, they hear that and they're like devastated. And
hmm.
it's just like, oh my God. So did you kind of come to that like on yourself, or did your parents coach you through this? Or
I kind of came to it on myself. My parents were really good with being like, hey, look, you got to find that amount of time. Like, if you want to do something, go and do it. Don't let anything get in your way. If you can't do something, figure out a plan. Like, start at the end of where you want to go to and then reverse engineer it. And my dad and my mom actually taught me this when I was very, very young. Like, here's your goal. This is what you want to do. Don't start at the bottom to try to hit your goal because it's going to be daunting. But if you start at the end, then you just reverse engineer backwards to where you are. And then you're going to have, like, at least, at the very least, a clear path to go and do something. So it was always just a matter of, like, if I wanted to do it, like, for example, I wanted to ride a bike. I wanted to learn how to ride a bike. Well, how you ride a bike, you get on the bike and you pedal and you create stability and it goes forward. And I felt like a million times. And my grandfather was the one that actually taught me to ride the bike. He put a hockey stick in the back and would just run me down this hill and run me down this hill and run me down this hill. And I would fall and fall and fall and fall. And it was never this mentality of like, oh, I fell, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. It was always, okay, what am I doing wrong? Because ultimately I want to be able to ride this bike. So what am I doing wrong and how do I fix it? And I would just be open to advice. And then once I got that information, I would literally just apply it and then I would go. Um, yeah. Does that answer the question or did I go on a rant again?
No, I mean, you do your thing because I'm like absorbing like this is
Okay.
all like really interesting things. I'm also curious as far as like what do you feel like has helped you tremendously with your survival? I know your mindset is like that is so much big portion of it. Was did your parents also make a serious effort to make sure you're eating the right foods while as you're growing up to make sure to protect your heart?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the most important things when I was a kid was um, so heart recipients typically last 10 years because there's a type of cholesterol that builds up in the heart. And we were all really aware of this, like right from the start. And what my parents did was they instilled the values into me of like eat healthy, don't eat a bunch of junk, like don't go to McDonald's every single day, like you want to eat your greens, you want to eat your carbs, you want to eat your protein, um, and you want to be consistent with this. Like there was no talk of macros or anything like that. It was just be healthy, do the right things. Because if you're healthy and you do the right things, then you're going to live longer. And then that helped me get into the point where I was in my teenage years and I got into the gym and I realized if I worked out and if I trained, then my heart would be even healthier. And if my heart was even healthier, then maybe it would go longer and I'd be able to live longer. So it became this like constant conversation and story I would have with myself where it started with my parents giving me the proper information and advice as best as they could to kind of kick that forward. And then once I had that ball rolling, it was just, learning for myself and taking in more information that just fed that story that was already true because at the age of like 17, 18, I had already outlived like three of the kids that had heart transplants around the same time that I did. There was two groups. One of them was group A and one was group B. Everybody in group B is dead. And in group A, there was like three or four other people that were still alive at that point. And one of the reasons was based on what my doctors had said was my habits, my eating habits, me working out, me training, me staying in shape, and me expanding my lungs and training my heart and doing those sort of things. So I think that having that sort of conversation with my parents when I was very, very young really helped me to live even longer. Like I'm 20, 24, 25 years post transplant now. And I don't think with that information as a child, I would have ate properly. I drink literally like this is 1 liter and I drink probably 5 or 6 of these a day. Um, just because water is like so important for your body. And those habits that I built as a kid I think they're the only reason I'm still around. Well, not the only reason, but they're one of the main ones.
Most definitely, man. So, what are some things that you have in your diet that you eat consistently that helps you stay healthy? Like, do you subscribe to a certain kind of diet,
Yeah,
or what are the most important things that you're consistently eating on a daily basis?
yeah, for sure. So the number one thing for me is coffee. I have to have coffee. I know it's not the best thing, and people don't like that, but I need the stimulus in the morning to wake up and get things done. Um, and then what I do is I take a look at where my weight is and what goal I'm trying to achieve, and then I look at how many calories I need to be taking in each day in order to do that. And then I typically eat like between 3 to 5 meals a day. They're all small meals and they're all spread out, and it's designed to keep my metabolism as high as possible. And I typically have like, I don't really subscribe to a diet per se. I just eat um, extremely healthy things that are going to help me hit my calorie intake. So, like I wake up in the morning, I have coffee, I drink a liter of water, I have oatmeal with honey and a protein shake. And then by lunch, I have like maybe a protein shake and a turkey sandwich, or like tuna, and then I might have a snacks, and they're like almonds or a protein shake. Or a lot of my diet now is liquid. It's a lot of protein. It's olive oil. It's flaxseed oil, um, and it's oatmeal and honey. And I hit my calories all the time. And I also eat a lot of vegetables, like salad. Pretty much every dinner, I have salad. Spinach is the main thing. Um, what it allows me to do is if, and I actually don't recommend doing this for a lot of people, but by making everything liquid, I can get up, I can drink it, I can hit all my calories and all my macros, all the nutrition in a very short amount of time, and get right back to work. So I'm not sitting there trying to be like, okay, how many calories is this and how many is this and blah 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 blah. It's like, if I need to hit 2,500 calories as an example, and I have 5 meals, then I can just take, spinach here, here, and here, and maybe even grind it up in my protein shake with flaxseed oil and olive oil, and I hit my fats, I hit my protein, and I have oatmeal for carbs, and it's done. I'm up, I'm energized, I'm ready to go. I never feel down, I never feel out of energy, and I can just like literally work straight. So it's not,
Mm.
if I start work at 8:30 and I end by 4:30, I don't have to break in between there and go and spend like an hour or 2 hours prepping or making food. It's already done. It's already like
Mhm.
easy, and it gives me the ability to just have like hyper amounts of energy. I can move forward. I can get my things done, and I'm literally hitting my calorie intake, all of my nutritional intakes, all really, really like just right on par. And I think a lot of that comes from when I was a kid, and my parents instilling those values.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely quick, easy, very efficient. So after you graduated from high school, you're like, okay, I hit that goal. I'm still alive. I've been working out. I'm healthy. When did you like? So what did you start to think of like? Well, because today here you are, mindset coach, accountability coach. Was your next thoughts like now I got to be a coach, or was it now I got to go to college? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I never went to college, and the reason why I didn't go to college was two reasons. Number one, I didn't really see myself succeeding because of the type of mindset that I had. Um, and a lot of the people that I knew that were going to college, they had really high grades. They wanted a specific kind of career. And what I wanted was to simply just be able to like help people. And I didn't know about coaching or anything at that time, besides fitness coaching. Um, so I didn't have like a concrete idea. And then I also kind of thought like, what if I don't live all that long? Like, do I really want to go to college and spend 5 years of my life just to die, and then I don't get to really do the things I want to do? So when I graduated, my main goal was to be able to create something sustainable for myself where I could just do all the things I wanted to do. And I ended up, I did go to school for personal training, which was the first thing I ever did because I was really big into it. I never really followed through with it because I ended up getting into internet marketing and a few other things. Um, and then I leveraged the marketing in the beginning to help me really build something while I worked at another job, so that I had like my own revenue with my own company and my own thing, as well as what I called supplemental income from the job itself. And what happened was is what I really wanted to do was simply like I had no real goal. It wasn't like I wanted to go do travel around the world, or I wanted to go do this, I wanted to go do that. It was simply just I wanted to be able to create something sustainable for myself. And I wanted to be able to like live my life to the fullest. Like I wanted to be able to go on hikes whenever I wanted. I wanted to be able to get up whenever I wanted. And that's sort of where it began. Um, and then I sort of just like jumped from that point. And one of the things that really, really, really helped me out, and I can't stress how much has really helped me out, was um, I went through this period where I stopped really caring. Like my subconscious mind just stopped caring about things, and I ended up like my company that I built just kind of like crashed. Uh, I got fired from my job. I got fired from the next job and the next job, and then my ex girlfriend pretty much just like said, "We're done because you're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything." And this self reflection moment I had when I was like, I took a shower and I was staring at myself in the mirror, and it was just like this moment, this aha moment where I thought like, "Hey, look, you're a piece of shit and you're not doing anything, and you had all these ideas and these goals when you were younger, and you pretty much achieved everything that you did that or that you wanted to because of how you had your mind set up, and it's all crashed now. And the only way that things are going to pick up for you is if you start to bring that back in. Like, she left you because you were going nowhere and you were doing nothing. And I tell this story because it's super important to understand that as an entrepreneur, you're going to have a lot of ups and downs. It's not just a stagnant line of like everything is wonderful and fantastic. If she didn't leave me and try to better herself in her life, then I would have never taken the plunge to start the next thing that I did, which was at the time another marketing company, but more dialed in and more focused. Um, and then really leverage that to get to the next point, which was, what do you really want to do? Well, I really want to travel to every country in the world because I want to be able to experience different cultures and see everything before I die. So I sat down and I had to make a plan for it. And that started around when I was like 23 ish, is when I really started to dial into that ideology.
Yeah, like it.
Again, actually, like it was all over again.
Mm. And you know what? Like the some of the greatest breakthroughs and some of our greatest teaching moments come from that place of pain. Like you
Yeah,
have to go through that because it's what gets you to move forward.
yeah,
And I sometimes like in that moment, yeah, it definitely sucks. But then it's like when you look back, like I needed that. I'm so grateful for that. And it's all in the mind. It all starts with your mindset, like looking back, like because you are the person who gives meaning to that happening. It's like, well, I'm
yeah,
glad that happened at this point because it got me to where I am today.
yeah.
Um, now, did you so okay, so just you start to put together a plan around 23. Did you go and start reading books? Did you have a mentor or just like looking up stuff on the internet and just like applying? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I had no mentor. I had no real idea of what I was doing. All I knew is that if I wanted to travel, I had to create something sustainable at the time. And the only thing that I knew of was internet marketing. So that's where I started to get into it because I knew I could create, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month, um, simply just doing like advertising for people. So I started to build out a plan in which uh, I could have this company and it could work while I traveled. And I ended up having a job. Like I had a job at the time, and then in order to build up enough revenue, I got a second job so that I can do both. So I just save as much money as possible. And then the internet marketing company, I basically just sat on YouTube and watched a lot of videos to try to figure things out for myself. And what I learned was the best way to do it is to like pick a niche and then do outreach, and then you hire for fulfillment and so on and so forth. And that way you can literally build that company to work for you, as opposed to me having to be in it all the time. So it was all self-taught and it was all through YouTube. And the start of the plan was literally just, okay, the goal is not to be a millionaire in 3 days because that's ridiculous. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs get into entrepreneurship and think that they're going to make $1 million in 30 days, or they're going to make like 50 grand in 33 seconds. Um, and I always go back to like its skill set versus like where you are versus where you want to be. Like Michael Jordan versus the fifth grader. Like you can't come into something as the fifth grader and think you're going to be able to hit the type of baskets that Michael Jordan would do in a single game. That's ridiculous. Like it's not going to happen. Can you do it? Like, are there people that make $1 million in a day? Sure. Can you do that yourself? Like, you really got to take a look at and be honest with where you're at, and be real with yourself. Create realistic goals. That's how you set yourself up for success and not failure. So what I did was, instead of saying I wanted to make $1 million in 30 days, I said I wanted to uh, reach out to X amount of people within 30 days. Like all I wanted to do was create an extra $1,000 a month. So I just reversed engineered it to this is how many calls I got to make. This is how many conversations I need to have. This is how many strategy sessions. This is how many sales I need to make. And then I just did it. And I did that while working 2 jobs at the time. Um, and I just like literally found people from different sites and Facebook groups to do the clarity calls for me and to do like the 10-minute calls and the sales calls to make that work. And that's pretty much how that started. Yeah, that's how that started.
Mm. So yeah, you a lot of hustle, a
Lots.
lot of hustle
Yeah.
went into that. Like, and that and in those moments, there's really no place for fear because it's like I gotta make this happen because there's no other choice
No.
but to go do this thing. And you had mentioned something that I think is very important. I was just actually listening to a podcast on my way here. Like I think like there's like an interesting, it's a very interesting paradox we have here. There's like the on one end, it's like, okay, I death can literally happen today. It's possible right here, right now. It can happen today. And at the same time, the actions that we take, it's like, but also live like we are can live in the long run. So like making sure that we are taking certain actions today that in case we do make it, 10 years, 15 years in the future, that we took care of ourselves earlier in our life, which are the actions that we're taking right now.
Mm.
So what do like all right, so you start putting together the team now. What so how did you come across like because how old are you today? You started as 23 today, you're like what, 27, 28,
28. Yeah.
28? Okay. So how long, because I know it is a long game, it does take a while.
Yeah.
Like from you starting and putting in that hustle for those two different jobs and starting your own thing, how long did it take you to get to the point where you actually started traveling? And were you always like a mindset coach, or did you experiment and then you trial and error? Like what did that
Yeah.
journey look like for you?
So I actually started, it took me about a year, in all honesty, to get things moving and off the ground and going in the right direction. This is why I always say you got to be super realistic about where you are and where you're trying to get to. So it literally took me a year of putting in hard work to build that out and get to the point where I could start traveling. Then I started to travel around the world, and it was at that point I had recurring revenue coming in. Where I got into being like the mindset coach, story coach, life coach sort of idea was I was in northern Thailand. The company was doing extremely well. We were doing a significant amount of revenue annually, and I was literally at a bar and I was talking to a hippie and super free, super relaxed, like the greatest life ever. Capitalism was the worst thing, and she was probably the happiest person I ever met in my entire life, and she had nothing. Like she had nothing, and nothing in terms of she had no real like goals. She had no real idea of what she was going to do tomorrow. She had like no sustainable business or revenue, and it was like she was 10 times happier, like literally more fulfilled than I was at that point. And I went through this moment where it was like an existential crisis between who I was and who I wanted to be. And I couldn't even put a finger on who I really wanted to be anymore. I pretty much lost myself within this idea of building this company and traveling around the world. Somewhere along the line, I got disconnected and I couldn't connect it back. And what ended up happening was I pretty much had this mental breakdown where I didn't enjoy running this marketing company anymore. I didn't want to do it. And I wasn't allowing myself to come to terms with that. And we were sitting down at a fire, and we were sitting down at the bar, sorry. And she asked me, like, what did you want to do when you were a kid? And I sat there for a moment and I thought about it. And I was like, well, I just wanted to help people. I wanted to help them tell their best story. I wanted to help them, change their narrative. I wanted to help them, get through their hard times because I knew that as a child, if you're sick and you're positive and you tell yourself positive stories, the chances of you surviving, increase exponentially versus the individual that's negative. So that's really what I wanted to do. And she said, do you want to work with kids or do you want to work with like adults? And I was like, well, I kind of want to work with kids, but I understand that it's an extremely hard road because there's not a lot of monetary value there, but there is a monetary value for working with adults because they are going to see that value very, very quickly. Um, and I can sell that. Like I know I can actually sell that. And she's like, okay, well then why are you not doing that? Just straight blank. And it took me a moment. It literally kicked me on my knees, and I hit the ground, not like literally, but technically. I was just kicked out. Like I couldn't even think. I couldn't speak, and I was just sitting there like, what do you mean? Why am I not doing that right now? Like, what are you insinuating? And I took offense to it. Like she was attacking me. And I stopped for a moment and I thought about it. And it made sense. Like, why am I not doing that? Where along the road did I get disconnected? Like, what happened that created this idea where that's not what I should do? And after that conversation, I went back home and I started to go through all these different stories and try to like literally go back and go back and go back because like who we are isn't real. It's a concept based on all of the beliefs in which we've acquired throughout our entire lives that create the foundation in which we base our lives on. Like who I am is a concept, and who you think I am, and who my brother thinks I am, and my sister, and my mom, and my dad, and my friends I grew up with when I was 4 years old, and my friends that I have now at 28 years old, and like it's not a real concept. It's an idea based on the beliefs in which you've created that create a foundation. So everybody is going to have a different version of you in their mind. So this idea of who I was just shattered because I was now literally reminded in paradise that I wasn't even who I wanted to become. Like I wasn't even doing the things I really wanted to do. And I had to make a decision. I had to change. I had to literally become someone else in order to obtain those things and to start to move in that direction. And that night I didn't even sleep. Like I couldn't sleep. I just remember going home and staring at the ceiling and being like, damn, what am I going to do now? Like, how am I going to fix this? So I started to go backwards and just eliminate any negative belief I had. And I've got the ability to be able to do this because I understand how to do this. It's not easy. It's extremely difficult, especially if you're working with yourself, because you got to be extremely honest. And if you can't be extremely honest with yourself, you're pretty much screwed because you get stuck. And I broke myself down and broke myself down and broke myself down and broke myself down continuously by literally just cutting out the legs on the table over and over and over again until I was back to being nothing and just an idea. And then from that point, I was able to start creating the new legs that created the table or the foundation in which I could become the person I wanted to be. And I, you know, from that point, I was like, okay, so this is what I wanted to do when I was a kid. What do I need to do in order to become that person? Well, I need to get some education. So I took some courses on life coaching. I took some courses on mindset coaching. I took that's when I started to get mentors, and that's when I started to get coaches, and that's when I started to like really figure this part out so that I could cement this. There was multiple moments in my life because everyone talks about like, oh, there was one big epiphany moment. Like I think that's ridiculous. Each person has probably 10 or 12 big epiphany moments throughout their life. I had one when I was 3. I had another one when I was like 7 or 8. I had another one when I was like 14. I had another one when I was 17. I had another one when I was like, with my ex-girlfriend when she told me I don't want to do this anymore because you're a piece of garbage. I had another one when I was 23 in paradise, living the dream, and I came to realization that I'm not even happy, like I'm not even fulfilled. And I think that conversation with Maxie, her name is Maxie, is like that was the real pivotal moment. That's what really changed. That's where I was able to actually go back. That's when I was able to start to go back and move forward almost simultaneously. Yeah. Did I answer the question or go on another rant again?
To be honest with you, I don't even remember the question. But I will
Okay.
say that shout outs to Maxi
Oh,
for introducing, like, for having you think about things differently
yeah.
and shed a whole new light on your life and your
Yeah. She's
situation.
total stranger too, man. It's like this person that I met 2 weeks into knowing her, and she was able to like figure me out better than anybody I ever knew in my entire life. It was insane.
Dude, that's actually very powerful. And my mentor, my very first mentor, Greg, his daughter was like that. Her name's Nicole, and she just was able to see who I was and be able to, like, she knew who I was inside. She knew me better than I knew myself, and she was able to coach me. And Greg as well, like both of them, I worked side by side by both of them,
Mm.
and just helped me out tremendously. It's helped lead me to countless and countless breakthroughs and made me question so many different things. And it is very powerful to have somebody like that, because in yourself you can come through some breakthroughs, but at the same time, when somebody from the outside can look at your situation and look at it from their lens, sometimes you get some garbage advice, but sometimes
Yeah.
you get some stuff that really penetrates and can really change so many things moving forward. Now, one thing that's a big motivator for myself, a big motivator for a lot of people in my morning hustlers group, is we subscribe very deeply to the Stoic philosophy, which is you can die any day.
Mm.
Now, do you meditate on your death a lot? Because I know that with your heart transplant, maybe it's like, well, how much time do I really have? Does that also help you keep you motivated? Like, what's your relationship with motivation and death and fear and all that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I do. I meditate literally every day for minimum 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. And it's it's a constant conversation where I'm fighting who I am versus who I want to be and what I want to and what I actually want to achieve. And my goal is to be able to create something that whenever I do go, which is most likely, and if we're being completely honest, most likely before I'm like 40 or 50. So I've probably only got another, I don't know, 28, let's say 10. Let's just say 10 years to be realistic here. So I've got about 10 years on average. Um, and I think that's actually pushing it too. But I've got 10 years to build something that's sustainable that I can pretty much hand off to my brother and my sister and have them run that company or be involved in that company so that I can help support them and their families. I can help retire my mother and my father for doing everything that they did when I was a kid. That's the only thing I could think of that can help them. Um, so I run these ideas through my mind every single day, and it's what helps me get up. It's what helps me push me forward. It's what helps me, do the hard things. It's what helps me say, hey, you know what? You've only got so many years. If you don't do this now, you're not going to become that person, and you're not going to be able to help your family and give back to them for everything that they've done for you. So I do subscribe to that, where you know everybody dies. I'm going to die sooner, and that it's not fear for me because I don't necessarily fear death. Death, you can't fear something that's an inevitability in my mind. And I've been around it so much and I've seen so many people die that the only actual fear that I would say I have that's related to death is I don't get to do everything that I really want to do in my life. And at 28, I can honestly 100% say that I've pretty much ticked off 99% of the things I wanted to do. And I had to create a new list of things that I wanted to achieve. And the list isn't a big list. Like at this point, it's pretty finite. I almost explained almost everything already. But that ideology and that mentality and that voice in the back of my head is what gets me up. It's the voice that says, "Hey, you're gonna die. So if you don't do this, then you're not going to be able to become that person. You're not going to be able to help your family. I know it's 4 in the morning. I know it's 5 in the morning, but get up. That's it." and I'll just get up. Hey, I know this is hard. I know that you don't like doing this, but if you don't do this, you're not going to become that person. You're going to die, and you're not going to be able to do the things that you want to do for your family now. Just do it. And like being able to tell myself that story continuously over and over and over again is really what's helped me to do the hard things and push myself forward and gain the momentum that I have. Because like death is going to happen. I know it's going to happen. It's an inevitability. But if I can leverage my mortality as a way of pushing myself to accomplish everything that I want to accomplish, to help the people that I care about the most, like that's really my motivation. That's really what it comes down to for me personally. And I genuinely believe that each person should sit down, literally sit down, grab a piece of paper and a pen. Don't do this on your phone. Don't do this on the internet. Literally a piece of paper and a pen, because there's something that happens in the brain when you physically write this down versus doing it online. It's almost like it becomes real. And write down who you actually want to be and what are the things that you need to start doing today in order to become that person, and just start doing them. Like realize that you're going to die and life is short. And if you don't do these things to become that person, that's it. Like you don't get another try at this. This isn't Super Mario. You don't just fall down the hole and then you got another life. Like, no.
Man, that's some hardcore knowledge right there, my man. All right, everybody. So everybody in the Facebook group, if you have any questions for Jordan, go ahead and drop them in here. He's gonna be answering a couple questions for you. In the meantime, Jordan, like if today was your last day here on Earth, what would your message be that you want the world to know?
If today was my last day on earth, um, if you want to do something, whatever it is, go do it. Make a plan, write it down if you have to, but you got to go do it. And I promise you that once you do, you will be more fulfilled than you could ever possibly imagine. That's the message.
Bam, solid, man. So today, what are your habits look like today that keep you moving forward and pushing? Um before we actually get into that, I want to just say here, mutual connection here. Greg said, Jordan, you remind me that as a healthy adult, I have no excuses for not going after my dreams and to do it now, since none of us know how much time that we have left.
Yeah.
Um, here's a actually this probably be a better question than the one I asked. Well, we can probably tackle both, but I'll remind you what the next question is after this question, which is Rosa. She asked, she's missed half the interview, but she wants to know, she might have missed this, but I don't think you didn't miss this, Rosa. But she said, how can you make someone overcome their fear?
Okay. It's a good question. In order to overcome fear, you first have to realize, come to terms with the fact that um, fear isn't real. It's simply just an idea of what you believe is going to happen to you, and that's all it is. Like it's not an actual tangible thing. You're simply just scared that if you do something or don't do something, that something's going to happen. And if we go back to what I said with like who you are is simply just a concept, then in order to combat how to get over fear, understanding that you yourself is not like who I am is a concept, then it's simply just a matter of being able to go, okay, cool. So if I'm a concept, then whatever it is that I'm afraid of, or whatever it is I think I'm afraid of, is a concept as well. And if it's simply just a concept as well, then I can make a decision to just choose not to feel a certain way, not to accept that, not to allow that reality to be a part of my reality. And move yourself forward in the direction you want to go. And I think what happens with a lot of people is they let these ideas of what they think is going to happen or not happen run their life. Um, and it, like literally the easiest way that I can explain this is fear is not real. It's a concept. It's an idea. It stems from a belief that we have about something to be true from experiences that we've had. And if we can understand that beliefs are not real either, they're just concepts, they're ideas based on what we think happened at a certain point in time, the information that we gained at that time, and how that's not even accurate information because it's not really true. It's simply just what we believe to be true about the situation based on what our worldview was. Then you can start to move yourself backwards to figure out, okay, so I'm afraid of moving forward. Okay, fine. Why am I afraid of moving forward? Okay, why am I afraid of that? Okay, why am I afraid of that? Okay, why am I afraid of that? And you can cycle yourself all the way back down to literally the original belief that started it. And what happens with a lot of people is it literally stems from childhood, not childhood as in like 3 or 4, but 3, 10, 13, 14. This is the time where a lot of our beliefs start to develop. And if you can, what I like to do is I look at life as like a video game. So I'm not like this is just a fleshy thing. I'm a character, and then my consciousness and my subconscious is what's going to control this character. So that's how I'm able to say like who I am is not real. It's a concept. If who I am is not real, it's a concept. Then in order to delete fear, in order to overcome fear, why am I afraid? Like I get literally like this is my fear. Okay, cool. Now remember, who you are isn't real. It's a concept. And if you're a character, then your subconscious is controlling the character. It becomes a lot easier to identify things without getting emotionally attached. So then you can say, okay, well, if I'm a character, then like this is a video game, here's the fear. Well, what started that fear? Well, what started that fear was when I was running away from, in the beginning of the video game, I was playing it, I went into a dark cave and a zombie came out and attacked me. Well, now I've got this fear of going into dark caves because the zombies are going to come and attack me. So, okay, but if I've got a weapon with me or if I go get a flashlight with me, like, then I can see what's going on. Or is every single cave going to have that zombie? Well, no, it didn't. So that fear is ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like now I'm walking into every cave thinking something's going to come out and get me when that's not true because it doesn't happen every time. And if we go back to our lives and we think about that in our own lives, then, for example, I think I'm going on a rant here and I think I've explained it. Cut me off if I have, because I'll talk about this forever. Does that explain the question? If not, I'll continue going.
So yeah, let's talk about some practicality here. Let's say
Yeah.
you have your sister or brother who is struggling to want to go do something, like maybe make a leap into having their own business or starting something, and they're having some fear behind it. Like, what would be your approach to coaching them through overcoming that fear?
Yeah, for sure. So the number one thing I would do is identify. Um, the first thing is, why are you afraid of doing that? Like, where does that start? And understanding what that is. Because once we understand what that is, then we can literally do the same, like what I just said, which was, okay, why do you believe that? Where does that start? And once we understand where that starts, then we can identify it as a false belief and eliminate it. Because what happens with a lot of people is they create beliefs as a child and they don't ever revisit them and they don't ever fix them and they don't ever change them. I went and talked to a girl and she told me I was ugly because I had a scar. And then 2 other girls said the same thing. Now I've got a belief. And so I don't talk to any women for the rest of my life because I think that I'm ugly and my scar is terrible. Well, that's not true though, because it's a scar. It's a piece of tissue that covers my chest and it's helped me literally live. Without it, I'd be dead. So that's not a belief that's really true. And I've been able to have conversations with other women without having any kind of conflict at all or ever hearing that again. So that belief is not true. So the fear itself can't be true. Does that make sense? Does that answer it in a more practical way?
Yeah, it
Perfect.
comes down to like reframing the reference, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
because that thing happened one time.
Mm,
It's like, oh, that happened that one time, or maybe it happened those few times, and that can be paralyzing, right? But it's
absolutely.
like, however, that isn't the result all the time. But however, if you believe that, it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy
Yep.
if you believe that. Like, oh, every time I talk to a girl, she thinks that I'm ugly because I have this scar, but that's like X doesn't equal Y
Yeah.
every single time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely. That makes sense. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. Like that's and yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And helping them realize that, like, oh, like where did that stem from? Okay, well, it's like, were there times where that wasn't the case? Were there times where there were girls who liked you and didn't think there was a issue with the scar? Okay, well, then that means that there's another side of that. Okay, well, how
Yeah.
about this other reference? Was there another time where? So then it's like changing your focus, because
Mhm.
that's like a really big thing, right? Because like our whole life is determined on what we focus on, and
Yeah.
I think that's the thing with like a person who's a victim, because they're focusing on things that they can't control. They're focusing on just things that like their focus is in the wrong area. But if your identity, right, is like, oh, I am, like, people bully me and I'm weak, well, guess what, you're actively going to look out for evidence in your life that prove that to be true, and you actively ignore all the evidence that proves that to be false. And all the
Yeah.
evidence that proves that to be false, you tend to discount it, and you say, no, that's because of this, that was because of that. And it's like, no, like, let's break this down. Like, we have to now change your focus towards something that, like, we got to start rebuilding this.
This is why I always talk about like who you are isn't real. It's just a concept. It's an idea. Um, it's always about who are you becoming. Because if it's always about who you're becoming, then and you're a concept, it's really easy to go back. It's really easy to identify. It's really easy to change the narrative. Um, if you don't do that, then that's where you get stuck. And
Yeah,
that's where you get attached. And that's where you like attach who you are to what people say or what you believe to be true based on the events that have happened. And that's where you
absolutely.
like a lot of people get really, really stuck.
Yeah, the attachment, that's actually, it's a very powerful concept. We have Greg. He answered, I mean, he asked, how do you keep a sense of connection when you're on the road with the people you care about and overcome loneliness?
It's probably the hardest thing to do. I'm not going to lie. It's like absolutely ridiculously difficult. And I struggled with it immensely. So, what I did was I would set out certain days of the week and certain time periods in the week where I'd be able to call my brother, call my mom, call my dad, call my friends, and just communicate with them. And a lot of the time, um, what really, really sucked was only having like even to this day, I only have a specific time with my friends, a specific time with my family. Like it's literally allotted in my habits, in my routines, because I think it's extremely important to be rigid. But having that sort of routine and like let's say living in Canada but in two different provinces, um, is weird because you feel like, oh well, they're just like two provinces over, as an example. But if you're halfway across the world, you tell this narrative, you tell the story like they're halfway across the world. It's so much harder. And I think that's a narrative that you tell yourself. I think that's a story you tell yourself. And again, you can just eliminate that. But what's super important is for you to sit down and take stock of where you are at and take stock of what you need. And if you need to spend more time talking with your family or talking with your friends, like allot it. Give yourself that time. Have those conversations. Set up those meetings. A lot of what I did was I sat on my phone and I talked to people on Facebook, and I would just communicate with them and try to be involved in things. The other thing I did is I literally shut off social media for personal things. So I only used it for business. And the reason why I did it is because as I was doing this and as I was moving forward, I was watching my family grow up and I was watching my brother and sister live their lives and my other like members of my family, my cousins grow up and do different things. And it was this feeling like I'm not a part of it, which is ridiculous because of course you're a part of it. You're a part of their lives. You're still communicating with them, but it gives you that sense of disconnection. So
Mhm.
like the biggest thing I did was stop using it for personal reasons and only for business. And I would literally allot specific times to be able to communicate and rejuvenate and fulfill myself again, because it was hard. Like, it was really hard. And even doing that, I don't even think you can possibly have the same sort of connection you can if you were to just live in the same state or like the same country. It's this super weird concept. And it all comes down to a narrative you tell yourself, but it's difficult. Like, it's
Mhm.
difficult.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. One thing that helps out a lot, even with me communicating with my own family, is just the use of with Zoom.
Mhm.
It's easier than ever, like and you can even set up certain parameters where, because what I like to do in my life is I set up rules. Like, if like for a friend, like I'm gonna have certain rules, like to be my friend. There's rules
Yep.
that I'm gonna have for someone to be, in my family. Like, I have certain rules that you're gonna abide by. Like, and if you can't abide by those, then well, maybe we can come to a compromise. But if it doesn't make sense, like I can't really compromise myself too much because I have to live through my values and who I
Yep.
am. And one thing is like, all right, hey, I'm a really busy person and I really want to have a solid relationship with you. Let's specific like a family member, or someone you want to, stay close with, like say like, hey, every single week on Sundays at 6 p.m., whatever, let's hop on a Zoom call and let's talk. And during that time, we are not to go and look at our phones, or not
Yeah.
just to chill and just kind
This
of
is
like,
exactly what I did.
yeah, like this time is going to be very intentional.
Mhm.
And it's helpful if you can also like let them know out of the gate, like, hey, I want to make sure this is some quality time. I'm going to give you my full attention. I just ask for that back from myself. And of course, they'll be like, if they want to genuinely have a solid relationship, they would, agree to that. Like, yeah, okay, sounds great. I'll make sure that that time is my time for you. And like, that's where we do our connection. That's where we really get to talk
Mhm.
and work through some things together. That can also serve to be very beneficial as well.
Yeah. That's literally what I did. Was it was conversations with each member of my family or friends where you'd set a specific time and a date, like a Monday, a Wednesday, a Friday, or a Sunday, or whatever. And what I like to do is like stack. So on Sunday, I would talk for maybe an hour with my brother, an hour with my sister, 2 hours with my mother, maybe an hour or so with my friend. Um, and that way I can do it all in one day. And
Mhm.
it all feels like you get a lot of fulfillment really, really quickly.
Oh yeah, for sure. And one thing that I'm doing as well, even with people that I want to form connections with, is now on Sundays I'm making that day to connect with people in my network, people I want to have relationships with long term, and
Mm.
just really like, this is a separate from the question that Greg asked in here, but I think there's some value to this. Is um reaching out to people in your network and asking them like, hey, I see you're still doing this thing. Hey, I'm just reaching out, just, had you top of mind. Is there anything I can do to help you out? Is there anything I can do to support you on your mission? It's just those little things, help you build your network. Cause at the end of the day, like the relationships in your life are what's gonna bring you the most fulfillment, the most
Yeah.
opportunities. And yeah, don't skip on that.
No, they're super important.
So Jordan, man, I really appreciate you taking the time here, man. I had a blast.
Me
Thank you for
too.
sharing like your life philosophies here. Where can people find you, connect with you, and also most importantly, where can they get your free mindset course, man? Let them know
Yeah,
where to get that.
for sure. So you can find me on Facebook, Jordan. I got my last one lost. They took it from me, but the new one's Jordan Marcia. So you can find me on Facebook at Jordan Marcia. Um, you can find me on Instagram at Jordan D Marcia. You can connect with me there, have conversations with me. I'm super easygoing. You just, hey, saw you on this podcast. Hey, what's going on? I'd love to respond. I'd love to have a conversation with you. And you can go and grab that free course at www.jordandmarcia.com. Literally, it's my website. And then right on the main page, there's a section where you just fill it out and you get a free mini course. And it's all designed for mindset.
Boom. Hey, man, thank you so much, Jordan. Appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, Greg. Thanks so much for having me here.
Yep. Until next time, everybody, make it a great day.